Welcome to Fractured Chaos.
You know that feeling when your entire life shatters in an instant? When everything you thought was real turns out to be nothing but a carefully constructed lie? I do. Oh, I know it all too well. My name's Tyler Henderson. 6 months ago, I had it all. Dream job as an architectural engineer, beautiful home in the suburbs, and Serena, my wife of 8 years. The woman I thought I'd grow old with. The woman who would bear my children. The woman who would, well, at least wait until I returned from my business trip before destroying our marriage. I was in Singapore, 3 weeks designing a revolutionary, eco-friendly skyscraper, career-defining project. I called Serena every night, despite the time difference. She seemed distracted, but I chalked it up to her new promotion at the law firm. Turns out she was distracted all right, by someone else's hands all over her body. I remember exactly when I knew something was wrong. 3 days before my flight home, she stopped answering my calls. Nothing. Radio silence. I left voicemails, sent texts, no response. I even called her sister, who gave me some vague excuse about Serena being overwhelmed with work. The moment I landed at JFK, I had 17 missed calls from my neighbor Dave. Not from Serena, from Dave. And that's when I knew my life was about to implode. Want to know what Dave said? "Tyler, man, there's a guy living in your house. He's been there for days. And your stuff. It's piled up on the curb." I thought it was a joke. Had to be. But as the Uber pulled onto our street, my street, I saw it. A mountain of my belongings on the lawn like garbage. 8 years of memories reduced to trash. And the locks? Changed. Every single one. The doorbell camera I'd installed last Christmas? Disconnected. I couldn't even see who was inside my own home. I pounded on that door for 20 minutes straight. And when it finally opened, it wasn't Serena. It was him, Jason, her personal trainer, standing there in my house, wearing my robe, holding my coffee mug. "Sorry, bro," he said like we were casual acquaintances. "Serena doesn't want to see you." Behind him, half hidden in the hallway, stood my wife. She wouldn't even look me in the eye when she handed me the divorce papers. And here's the kicker, the real twist that still makes my stomach turn. According to the paperwork, she'd filed for divorce 3 days after I left for Singapore. She'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months. The business trip was just her perfect opportunity to execute her plan. But what Serena didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have known, is that I wasn't just any husband she could discard. I'm the man who remembers everything. Remember our third date, Serena? When you told me about the offshore account your daddy set up for you? The one your first husband never found out about during your divorce? The one you swore would always be your escape hatch if life got too complicated? Turns out I was paying attention. The first night after being kicked out of my own home, I slept in a $39 motel room with sheets that smelled like cigarettes and regret. I could have called friends, family, but humiliation is a powerful silencer. So instead, I opened my laptop and got to work. What most people don't know about me is that before architecture, I studied computer science. I never pursued it professionally, but those skills, they never really leave you. Serena used the same password for everything. The name of her childhood horse plus her birth year. Amateur move, really. Within an hour, I was inside her email, her social media, her banking apps. That's when I discovered what she'd been hiding. Serena hadn't just been sleeping with Jason, she'd been funneling money into that secret account. Our money, money from our joint savings, almost $300,000 over the past year. Money we'd been saving for a family, for our future children's education. But what made me physically ill wasn't the affair or even the money. It was the messages. Hundreds of texts between them, laughing about me, planning their life in the house I'd designed, mocking my obsession with work and my pathetic attempts at romance. They'd been together for 11 months. 11. Almost a full year of betrayal, right under my nose. Now, most men in my position might rage, might confront, might beg and plead for answers or a second chance. But I'm not most men. I'm an architect. I build things methodically, brick by brick. And revenge, when done right, requires the same precision. So I disappeared. Completely. Closed my social media, changed my number, rented a small apartment under a different name. For all intents and purposes, Tyler Henderson ceased to exist. The only person who knew where I was? My lawyer. And let me tell you, when Barbara heard my story, saw the evidence I'd gathered, she was not just on board, she was leading the charge. While Serena and Loverboy were playing house, we were building a case. Financial records, Text messages, emails, the works. Then I did something that Serena never expected. I waited. 1 month passed, then 2, 3. I could see from the bank statements that they were living large. Weekend trips to the Hamptons, a new hot tub installation, remodeling my home office into a wellness studio for Jason's private training sessions. Meanwhile, I lived like a monk. Basic apartment, minimal expenses. Every penny I earned went into a special account, one that would serve a very specific purpose. 4 months after being kicked out of my life, I made my first move. I sent Serena a single text from a new number. I know about Cayman account number 847290. Enjoy your happiness while it lasts. No response, but her bank records showed a frantic transfer of $50,000 the next day. She was scared. Good. 1 week later, another text. The IRS is very interested in undeclared foreign income, especially when it belongs to more than one person. This time she replied, "Who is this? What do you want?" I didn't answer. Let her stew in her paranoia. The third message was delivered the old-fashioned way, a letter to our house addressed to both of them. The truth always rises to the surface. Sometimes it just needs a little help. Inside the envelope, a single photograph of Serena and Jason from 9 months ago, while we were still supposedly happily married, entering a hotel together. That's when Serena started trying to find me, calling mutual friends. Even reached out to my parents who, bless them, pretended they hadn't heard from me in months. What she didn't know was that everything was playing right into my hands. All those months of living frugally, saving every penny from my new consulting gigs, that money wasn't for a lawyer. It wasn't for a new start. It was to buy the mortgage on our house. See, what Serena didn't know, because she never bothered to read our financial paperwork, was that our mortgage had been sold to a small, struggling bank that was quietly selling off its assets. And with my perfect payment history and a significant cash offer, they were more than happy to transfer the note to me. Through a shell company, of course. Wouldn't want to spoil the surprise. So there they were, Serena and Jason, living in a house that, technically, I now owned. But I still wasn't ready to strike. Not yet. Because the offshore account, that was the real prize. Through some connections from my college days, and yes, a slightly gray area of computer access, I managed to trace the account, confirmed its existence, and discovered something Serena had no idea I could ever find. She hadn't just been hiding our money there. She'd been hiding money skimmed from her law firm's client trust accounts. Small amounts. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. Probably thought no one would notice. But I noticed, and more importantly, I documented everything. 6 months to the day after being locked out of my own home, I finally made my move. It began with a certified letter from Henderson Holdings LLC informing the residents that their mortgage had been purchased, and due to irregularities found in the original application, a full audit would be conducted. 3 days later, Serena's managing partner at the law firm received an anonymous package detailing suspicious transactions from client accounts, with a helpful roadmap of exactly where to look for confirmation. The same day, the IRS received an extensive documentation of unreported foreign income, complete with account numbers, transaction dates, and estimated tax liability. And just in case that wasn't enough, I sent copies of all their mocking texts and emails about me to both of their sets of parents. Old-fashioned? Maybe? Satisfying? Absolutely. Then, as everything was exploding around them, I finally showed my face. I walked into my house with the new key I'd legally acquired as the property owner. Being the mortgage holder has its privileges. I found them in the kitchen, surrounded by papers, both on their phones, faces drained of color. The look of utter shock when I walked in. I'll treasure that memory forever. Hello, Serena. Jason. Interesting reading material? Serena looked like she'd seen a ghost. Jason looked like he might vomit. You can't be here, Serena whispered. We have a restraining order. I smiled and placed the mortgage documents on the counter. Actually, you're the ones who can't be here. This is my house now, legally. You have 24 hours to vacate. Jason lunged at me. Big mistake. Turns out, those 3 months I disappeared, I wasn't just building a case. I was rebuilding myself. 5 days a week with an MMA trainer who specialized in self-defense. When Jason's fist came flying, I was ready. 1 block, 1 counter, and Mr. Personal Trainer was on the floor, clutching his dislocated shoulder. That's assault, I said calmly, pointing to the new camera I'd secretly installed in the corner of the kitchen ceiling. All on video. Want to add that to your growing list of problems? The next 24 hours were a blur of activity. Serena was placed on administrative leave from her firm pending investigation. Jason's training clients began canceling in droves after I may or may not have emailed them evidence that he'd been sleeping with multiple married clients. Their belongings, everything they hadn't already thrown out of mine, were hastily packed into suitcases and boxes. No moving truck, no time to organize, just frantic packing while making desperate phone calls. I sat in what used to be our living room, calmly watching them, drinking a glass of the expensive bourbon they'd bought with my money. "Why are you doing this?" Serena finally asked, mascara streaming down her face. "You could have just divorced me and moved on." I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since this all began. "You didn't just end our marriage, Serena. You tried to erase me. While I was working to build our future, you were laughing at me behind my back. You stole from me, you humiliated me, and you did it all without giving me a chance to even fight for us." I stood up, walked to the door, and held it open. Consider this me refusing to be erased. They left at sunrise. No forwarding address. Last I heard, Serena's facing potential disbarment and criminal charges. Jason's personal training business is dead in the water. And that offshore account? Frozen pending investigation. The house feels different now. Bigger. Emptier. I've thought about selling it, starting fresh somewhere else. But then I remember how it felt to be thrown away, to have everything taken from me in an instant. I won't be that person ever again. So I'm staying, rebuilding, redecorating, creating something new from the ashes of what was destroyed, because that's what architects do. People ask me if I regret what I did, if it was worth it, if the revenge brought me peace. The truth is, I don't think of it as revenge. I think of it as justice. I think of it as standing up and refusing to be a victim. Would I do it again? In a heartbeat. But would I have preferred that none of this ever happened? That Serena had loved me the way I loved her? That we could have worked through whatever problems drove her to betrayal? Of course I would. Revenge may be sweet, but it's still a bitter meal to eat alone. Then again, I'm not entirely alone anymore. Remember Barbara, my lawyer? Turns out we have a lot more in common than just a passion for justice. We're taking things slow, very slow. Trust isn't something that comes easily to me these days. But for the first time in a long time, I'm looking forward rather than back. So let this be a lesson. Not just to Serena and Jason, but to anyone who thinks they can discard a person like they're nothing. Some of us refuse to disappear. Some of us keep the receipts. And some of us know exactly where the bodies are buried. Metaphorically speaking, of course. They say the best revenge is living well. I disagree. The best revenge is making sure the people who hurt you never sleep soundly again. And trust me when I say, Serena and Jason won't be sleeping well for a very, very long time. Neither will the next person who underestimates me.